Hello and welcome to this digital photo video tutorial. I'm Phil Hall and I'll be showing you how to carry out a split raw conversion on your landscape images. Landscapes often feature extreme lighting with very bright and dark areas, which can make for some really striking imagery. The trouble is that this extreme tonal range can be hard to record in a single image. One solution is to make two separate exposures, one for the sky and one for the foreground, and then blend them together in Photoshop. This is only really possible if you're using a tripod and can still be a bit of a pain. The other is to take a single shot using RAW, and because a RAW file is so versatile, it can be pushed and pulled a lot more than a JPEG file can. So, with our single RAW file, we can then make two separate conversions, one for the foreground and one for the sky, and then we can then blend them together in Photoshop for one final striking image. As you can see from the before and after shots here, the changes can be incredible. So, let's see how that's done, and if you'd like to open up castlerig.dng, we can crack on. Just close these down. This is our final shot that we're going to achieve in a couple of minutes time. As you can see, it's a lot stronger than our start image. So just close that down and I'll open up castlerig.dng as well. When I do that, it launches Photoshop's Camera Raw Converter, and this is where all of the major changes are made to our image. For this first conversion, we're only going to concentrate on the foreground area here. So any changes that happen in the sky, we're not going to be concerned about because we're going to be doing that in our second conversion. So with that in mind, let's take a look at these sliders here. We're going to be using the basic tab pretty much entirely for this conversion. And as you can see, it's got quite a lot of controls. We're going to be just touching on a few of these, and the main one is, or one of the main ones, is the temperature slider. This controls the white balance of the shot. So if I just drag it to the left, you see the image really cools down quite a bit. If I take it the other way, it probably goes to the extreme the other way. So we want somewhere in between that. So I'm going to go for around about 6600. So if I just click back off preview, just warm the shot up a touch. Tint we can fine tune that colour balance with, but I'm pretty happy as it is. If I just slide it across, you can see that has another huge effect on the outcome of the shots. But I'm going to leave it where it was, around about -5. If you don't want to use the sliders, Photoshop has a set of white balance presets. So probably all of these sound familiar if you've been using a camera with white balance. You've got daylight, cloudy, shade, tungsten, so you can just run through these depending on your lighting situation and see if any of those suit your shot. So I mean, we could have used cloudy for instance in this image, but I'm going to leave it as this custom setting I've created here. Okay, we're going to move down to the exposure slider, and as I've said, we're just concerned with the foreground at the moment. So I'm not going to be trying to balance out our exposure with the sky. So as it is, it's looking a little bit on the dark side. So what I'm going to do is just get this slider here and then just drag it to the right. If I go too far, yeah, it just bleaches out. And if we go the other way, again, too dark. But we do get our nice sky. But we'll return to that in our second conversion. Okay, so I'm going to go up a bit, just a touch. So it's plus 0.65, I think works quite nicely for this. If I click back, you can see those couple of changes have made quite a difference to the image. Right, moving on, we've got the recovery slider here. This is if we've got any blow-in highlights, we can try and recover some of that detail. If I select my highlight clipping warning, which is on my keyboard, we can just click that icon there. You see we get this red splotch around here. That's in the sky, so we're not too concerned about that right now because we should be able to get that back when we do our second conversion. So I'm just going to get rid of that for now and then move down to fill light. Again, I don't think we need to touch the fill light slider. This is for when the shadows have all blocked up into black, and at the moment in the foreground it's looking pretty good, so I'm going to leave that as it is. Black's brightness and contrast. I think we're going to really push the contrast once we're in Photoshop, so again I'm going to leave that for now. But these three sliders down the bottom here, clarity, vibrance and saturation, are all key sliders here in our conversion. First, let's take a look at the clarity slider. Now this just adds punch to the shot, giving the image much more depth. So if I just go to the extremes of this, you can see how this affects the image. So if I go all the way to plus 100, it's quite extreme, it's probably gone a bit too far. And if I go the other way, see it goes all misty and horrible and sort of really quite flat. So want to go up, we want to go for around about plus 40. So around about there, so a good medium. So I click back. Yeah, that's just added a bit more depth to the image. The vibrant slider is a really handy tool here. This just really boosts the least saturated colours in the image. So if I crank it up all the way, you can see that's gone really over the top. If we bring it back down, around about plus 40 again here, I reckon, as well. Finally, we've got our saturation slider, and we all know this, it just really just boosts the colours across the entire image. So don't want to go too far, come back and go for around about plus 20. Okay, if I click back off preview, you can see that was how our image started out, but those 4 or 5 changes we've made to the shot have really turned it around, giving it a lot more spark and bite. That's looking good. So I mean, we could hit open image now, launch into Photoshop, but what I want to do is just crop out this filter holder in the corners of the frame. It's really distracting. Now we could do this in Photoshop, but I just thought I'd show you how it's done using Camera Raw. So we've got a crop tool there. It's probably familiar to you if you've been using one in Photoshop. Select it, and then just drag it out across the frame. What I'm going to do now is hold down Shift, and then drag the bottom right hand corner inwards, and the top left hand corner inwards. Holding down Shift allows us to maintain the same aspect ratio of the shot, so we don't get any weird sizes of our image. Okay, I just want to rotate it as well. I'm probably actually going to crop it a little bit more in there so we get more pleasing composition. And then I'm just going to rotate it a touch as well, just to level it off. So once I've done that, I can hit return, and our image is cropped for us. If you're not happy with your crop, all you have to do is click and hold on the crop tool, and where it says clear crop, just go down to it, and you'll go back to your original image. Okay, but I'm happy with that, and I'm happy with the way the conversions worked out, so I'm going to hit open image. So we're really on our way with this shot. We've got our first conversion nailed. We just now need to think about sorting out our second conversion and getting that sky looking really good. I'm using CS4, so I can just open up castlerig.dng as I did before. If you're using an earlier version of Photoshop, however, CS2 or below, you're going to need to save this file as a JPEG before you can open up castlerig.dng. But save it somewhere easily accessible like your desktop, and then you can open up castlerig.dng again. Otherwise, it won't let you reopen the same file. Anyway, I'm going to just open up my start image again. So castlerig.dng, there it is. And it will load up the raw converter again. As you can see, it's maintained all of our adjustments, including the crop. So we've got our white balance as we left it last time, and our clarity, vibrance and saturation sliders as well. So now I think we're going to take a look at sorting this sky out, and we're not going to have to make many adjustments because, as I've already shown you, most of these changes have been saved. So I'm going to leave the temperature and tint as they were, but the main one I'm going to play around with is the exposure slider. So what I'm going to do is just drag it the other way to really darken down the sky. This is what we're going to concentrate on now. As you can see, probably gone a bit too far there. I'm going to come back to around about minus 1.20. So you can see that's really brought a lot of detail back in the sky, including that area where it lost a lot of detail in our first conversion. So that's looking good. The foreground's gone a bit on the dark side, but as we've already done our first conversion, that's not a problem. Okay, I'm going to move down. I don't think any of these sliders here are necessary. Just with clarity, I think I'm just going to punch it up, probably to around about plus 50. I'm going to leave vibrance as it is. I think if I go too nuts, it's probably a bit too much. So I'm going to leave it at plus 40. Same with saturation. I don't want to go overboard with it. So the crop's the same. So with that in mind, I'm just going to hit open image. Okay, now as you can see, we've got our second conversion, and if I just click back, we've got our first conversion as well, which was the foreground. So with this conversion selected, all I'm going to do is hit Control A to select the entire image. You'll see those marching ants running around the image. Control C to copy it, so that image is now copied, and with that done, we can just close this file down. So all I'm going to do is hit Control W, another shortcut. I don't want to save this image, because what I'm going to do is hit Control V and paste it in to our second conversion. What we want to do now is just reveal that dark brooding sky on the layer below. So if you want to bring up your layers palette, you can either hit F7 on your keyboard if you're using Photoshop, or you can go to Window, layers if you're using elements. As you can see, we've got our two layers there. We've got our background layer, which has got the dark sky conversion there, and layer 1, which is our foreground conversion. So all I'm going to do is get the lasso tool from the toolbox. It's already selected. Then with layer 1 highlighted there, I'm just going to make a very rough selection of the foreground around there and then up. So once we've got that, we've got marching ants running around the image. If you're using elements, however, rather than making a selection of the foreground, you're going to need to make a selection of the sky. And I'll show you for why in a moment. Whatever way you make the selection, depending on which system you're using, you're going to need to feather it. So go to Refine Edge and enter a feather of around about 150 pixels. Hit OK, and we've now got our feathered selection. So with that done, all I'm going to do, with my layer 1 still selected, select the Add Layer Mask icon. When we do that, the sky beneath is revealed and we get our perfect shot. As you can see, that's looking much better than before. If I just hide that, you can see we've just balanced out the exposure really nicely. If you're using elements, we haven't got this Add Layer Mask icon. So all you have to do is just tap delete on your keyboard and it will reveal the sky beneath. So it hasn't got quite the same flexibility, but you can still get the same look and feel in your shot. Okay, what I'm going to do now is just show you a couple of little tricks. Say you don't get your feathered selection just right, I'm just going to zoom in. There's probably a little bit of burnout in your sky, for instance. All I'm going to do is just make sure I've got black as my foreground colour, the brush tool selected, my layer 1 mask thumbnail selected, then with an opacity of around about 45, I should be able to just brush back some of that detail there and just reveal a bit more of our layer below. As you can see, that's working nicely. If I want, I can even go further in there just to add a bit more definition to the mountain. So just along there, then you're done. If you go too far, all you've got to do is just swap black for white as your foreground colour, and then you can just brush away any unwanted areas. Anyway, that's looking good. All I'm going to do now is just go down to the bottom and select Create New Fill or Adjustment Layer, hit Levels, and we get this histogram appear. If you're using an earlier version of Photoshop, CS3 or below, you'll get a specific pop-up box. But I'm using CS4 and it's got its own specific window. But what I'm going to do is the same for any version. It's just drag right hand arrow inwards and the same with the left a little bit. As you can see, that's just affecting the image nicely. What I'm going to do, just sort out the midtones, just going to drag them to the right as well. Probably about there. And then if you're using an earlier version of Photoshop, all you have to do is hit OK. I'm just going to close that because it's already been applied. And if I just hide that change, you can see that's just finished the image off really nicely. And that's how to make a split raw conversion. By making two separate conversions, we've managed to maintain as much detail and tone as possible. This technique has allowed us to have bags of drama in the sky and at the same time still have a correctly exposed foreground. So if I just hide the layer 1 for a start, I'll just get rid of that levels as well, you can see that if we'd have just done a single conversion, it wouldn't have had quite the same impact. But by doing two conversions and blending them together, we get a decently exposed foreground as well. I'll just bring the levels in there just to finish it off. And the beauty of this technique is that it can be applied to pretty much any landscape shot. So why not give it a whirl yourself? Hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and I'll see you next month. Cheers!